Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
A 22-year-old man was charged with June's Labor Day tragedy.
A contractor who the Prime Minister called out for receiving large hurricane payouts is now being described as a whistleblower. That story is coming up.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle WALKINE. Nearly 4 months after 4 people were killed and more than 24 people injured during the Labor Day parade, a young man was charged this afternoon in connection with that incident. Jasmine Brown was in court and filed this report.
The 22-year-old made his way inside court today, flanked by 2 police officers, as his anxious family waited in court. Nearly half a dozen family members sat stoically in court number 8 as Sawyer was arraigned before acting Deputy Chief Magistrate Shubusola Swain. Sawyer, who is a resident of Silver Gates off Blue Hill Road South, was charged with 4 counts of manslaughter by negligence in the deaths of 55-year-old Diana Gray Ferguson, 51-year-old Kathleen Fernander, 41-year-old Tabitha Hay, and 48-year-old Tammy Patrice Gibson. Prosecutors allege that on June 1, 2018, by means of unlawful harm, Sawyer negligently caused the deaths of the 4 women. According to police reports, 4 women were killed and 24 others were injured when a runaway truck hit participants of the Labor Day parade near the East Street and Shirley Street intersection. Acting Deputy Chief Magistrate Swain asked Sawyer if he understood the charges. Sawyer, whose hands and feet were shackled, quietly responded by saying, "Yes, ma'am." After reading the charges, Swain then informed Sawyer that he was not required to enter a plea and added that the matter would be fast-tracked to the Supreme Court by voluntary bill of indictment. Swain also told Sawyer that she lacks the jurisdiction to grant him bail. However, he has the right to apply for bail in the Supreme Court. He was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections. The matter was adjourned to November 13th. Sawyer was represented by attorney Barry Sawyer. Assistant Superintendent Clifford Daxon was the prosecutor. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
All right, thanks, Jasmine. Well, 21 men and 5 women are in police custody tonight after being arrested during an operation on ABACO. Operation Tidal Surge saw dozens of officers storm homes and businesses on the island during the wee hours of the morning, looking for criminals. In the end, officers made numerous arrests, collected firearms, drugs, and nearly $100,000 from 2 individuals.
It was a joint operation between our law enforcement partners, the Bahamas Defense Force, our U.S. partners, OPA. And this is a very serious combination. Very serious combination, as you see that we continue to work together and end up with good results.
Fernander and dozens of officers landed in the capital this afternoon on board a U.S. Coast Guard aircraft. Fernander said the police force will be bringing all officers out of the office as the year comes to an end to help ramp up their fight against crime. Now, as for where they will head next,
element of surprise.
Yes, but there will be other operations.
This is just one of many you will see, and we will be so creative as we move. As I told you, intelligence-led operations.
Assistant Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernander says police have all reason to believe a body found on a beach in ABACO is that of a man who was stabbed and reported missing.
We are live in Crossing Rock at the beach where the remains of Mario's body is found. Thank you, everyone, for your prayers.
In a video that has since gone viral, a woman who claims to be the mother of Mario Sawyer, who was reported missing weeks ago, thanks her Facebook friends for their support.
Thank you. At least we have some sort of closure. I'm standing by with on the beach that you can see ahead of you. Let me see if I can zoom in a little closer.
The decomposed body was found buried in the sand on a beach in the area of Crossing Rock, ABACO. Now, while the body was flown to the capital for an autopsy to determine the exact cause of death, police believe the remains are that of the young man who was reportedly shot outside a nightclub on ABACO weeks ago. At that time, no body was found, and neither was the suspect.
We can't confirm at this time, but we suspect that it may be one of the individuals or the person alleged to have gotten shot and the body disappeared and the individual responsible. We are not certain, there's still the autopsy and some other things that we have to do to confirm that but preliminaries that we know at this time, it's a possibility that it could be that same individual. So that investigation is ongoing.
Now, according to Fernander, it doesn't appear as though the body washed ashore. Instead, he said someone clearly dug the grave in the sand, placed the man's body in it, and left it there for weeks.
I believe, based on what we discovered in the preliminaries, it was placed there. As I said, indicated a little shallow grave.
Any visible injuries on the body?
Decomposed, so I can't say at this time. So the autopsy will help us to determine the cause of death.
Well, National Security Minister Marvin Dames is responding to a very graphic video on social media showing an officer using what some say is excessive force. Dames says while one incident does not define the entire force, he admits that sometimes officers do abuse their authority. Julian Gray reports.
Say something. Say something. On my hand and ding bleeding, boy dog, boy real dog.
A viral video of an officer with his knee on the neck of a bleeding suspect has sparked outrage after making the rounds on social media. The 43-second video has garnered over 300 comments as some persons called on National Security Minister Marvin Dames to publicly address the matter. Well, in an interview with Our News, Dames said the police force has procedures in place to deal with such matters.
Yes, there are officers who from time to time abuse their authority. There is a mechanism to deal with that. Okay, we have a complaints and discipline unit. The deputy commissioner, who I have right here to my right, is responsible for complaints and discipline, and every matter should be thoroughly investigated, and we have an independent body that over the last couple of years had been disbanded, but we're bringing that back on board, and that is responsibility for that independent body to look and to call for every matter and review it to ensure that the police are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
While he admits that the force has a few bad apples, Dames said one incident does not define the entire police force.
This is not the norm. You can't isolate a video and say the entire police force is using too much excessive force. We're in the era of, this is the era of social media. Everything the officers do, and if you would have seen me a second ago, you see an officer testing a video cam, and we're bringing that very shortly. We have the RFP prepared, and we should be taking it to cabinet shortly for approval. We don't have anything to hide. This is something we're willing to do, but to say that that's the norm, I think it's ridiculous.
Though he did not give a timeline, the National Security Minister said the introduction of body cams will add more transparency and hopefully improve the perception of the organization. Now, the National Security Minister said they must simply trust the training that they give to officers, as each situation in the field is different.
We have ramped up our training significantly. Now, after we would have provided those, it's in the officer's hands. So I can't tell an officer if he is confronted with a situation what to do. He now has to put his training into effect, and he now has to make the decision, because at the end of the day, when the decision is made, it's him or her who will be accountable for that decision.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
All right, thanks, Jillian. Well, more than a year after Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis called into question lucrative contracts paid to a Bahamian company under the former government, documents making the rounds on social media revealed that the controversial contractor received 5 payments from the Ministry of Finance between April and August of this year. Today, Attorney General Carl Bethel defended the payments. Jared Higgs reports.
I've seen and heard posts on social media calling into question certain installment payments being made to Jonathan Ash, who is a whistleblower.
Attorney General Carl Bethel is responding to a document circulating on social media that claims to show continued Ministry of Finance payments being made to Jonathan Ash. While acknowledging that the Ministry of Finance still owes Ash money, Bethel described the Ash Enterprises proprietor as a whistleblower. This comes more than a year after Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis described Hurricane Matthew payments to Ash as questionable and astonishing. The document in question outlines 5 payments made between May 23rd and August 29th of this year. Those payments, totaling $150,000 including VAT, are described as installment payments and each have their own payment identification number. Bethel says Ash, the proprietor of Ash Enterprises, was owed money by the government and they're simply meeting their obligations.
I have to say, there's nothing untoward about these payments. They are installment payments on an acknowledged debt that the Ministry of Finance met on its books when we came to office.
During his first budget contribution as Prime Minister, Dr. Minnis described payments made to Ash Enterprises for Hurricane Matthew cleanup as shocking. Minnis told Parliament that Ash received $250,000 on January 18, 2017, and 2 days later, he received two checks, one for $206,400 and another for $220,912. 6 days later, on January 26th, Minnis says Ash received yet another two checks, totaling $422,700. Minnis described more payments in April, where he claims that Ash received 3 or 4 checks in one day on April 26th. He says Ash also received a check for $151,524 on May 9th, the day before the 2017 general election. Besides his company Ash Enterprises, Minnis says Ash was also awarded contracts for other companies, including $240,000 for Earth Movers Inc., $619,560 for Heavy Truck Line Service, and $198,000 for a company called Industrial Heavy Duty Equipment. In total, and when combined with other contracts, Minnis says Ash received more than 46 payments, valued at $8,113,908.24. More than a year on from those comments, and with Bethel describing the controversial contractor as a whistleblower, the Attorney General now insists that more needs to be done to protect people like Ash.
Whistleblowers should not be given an economic death sentence.
The Attorney General says the consequences of whistleblowing can be catastrophic for that individual's finances, as members of society can be harsh.
There have been persons who have been driven to the point of bankruptcy because once they revealed an alleged act of corruption, they have been unable to secure any kind of contract or remunerative employment in this society. We can be judgmental as a people sometimes, and this has adversely affected and proves to be a real disincentive in the effort to fight against corruption at all levels in our society.
Now Bethel, who spoke to reporters before going up into their weekly cabinet meeting, says they'll be introducing legislation to address this vexing concern.
The government will bring forward a full Whistleblowers Protection Act to clarify this. So there has to be a clear signal by the government that we as a society must do what is necessary not to provide a disincentive to people who want to be honest and who want to help in creating, we hope, a more civil and just society.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Still to come on Our News, police officers pay tribute to their murdered colleague, plus the PLP chairman responds to F&M claims of political operatives in the public service. Stay tuned.